Good morning. Barry Bryson here. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We are continuing our study of the Gospel of Matthew. We're in chapter 21, and we're going to read verses 12 through 17. And this is the cleansing of the temple. Now, we have already had in this series of events, some details that may bother some folks. For instance, Matthew has two blind men instead of one blind man being healed between Jericho and Jerusalem. And we talked about that a few days ago. And we're going to have the cleansing of the temple. Today, John records the cleansing of the temple at the beginning of Jesus' ministry. And we're going to have the episode with the fig tree next time, which upsets some people. And then there's going to be the whole matter of how many times did the cock crow. We've talked a bit about historiography, the science of writing history, and the fact that the rules of the first century aren't the same as the rules in the 21st century, and we have to be okay with that. It is arrogant and inappropriate and just plain wrong to take our standards and apply them to a first century text. And were there two cleansings of the temple, one at the beginning of Jesus' ministry and one at the end? Sure, there could have been. Or could John have moved that account to the beginning of Jesus' ministry because it suited him thematically? That's possible too. And whatever you believe about that is fine with me because it doesn't make one whit of difference. What the Bible records is absolutely true. And it happened exactly as the Bible describes it. And so, anyway, I hope that you don't have an issue with that. I don't know what to say to you if you do. Other than it's not right to take our 21st century rules and apply them to a first century text. Let's read verses 12 through 17. Jesus entered the temple and cast out all those who were buying and selling in the temple, and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who were selling doves. And he said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a robber's den." This is from two prophets, Isaiah and Jeremiah, chapters 56 and chapter 7, respectively. "And the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and scribes saw the wonderful things that he had done, when the children who were crying out in the temple saying, 'Hosanna to the Son of David,' they became indignant," you think? "And he said to them, 'Do you hear what these are saying?' And Jesus said to them, 'Yes, have you never read, out of the mouth of infants and nursing babes you have prepared praise for yourself?'" Psalm 8, by the way. "And he left them and went out of the city to Bethany and lodged there." Jesus is taking possession of the temple. I mean, he just is. And he's going to maintain possession of that space. It's going to be his, and he's going to move about it freely for most of the week, at least until he gets arrested. And he's going to be going back and forth to Bethany, which is just on the other side of the Mount of Olives, around 2 miles from Jerusalem, and he's going to stay there. He's going to spend the night there. He's not spending the night in town. He's spending the night in Bethany and then coming back every day. He goes into the temple, and he's probably not into the temple proper. So we need to talk about this. So after the returnees came back from Babylonian captivity, they rebuilt the temple. And we can read about this in Ezra and Haggai and others of the prophets. And it was not as glorious an edifice as Solomon's temple was, but it was built on the same footprint. And it followed the same design, which is just the design of the tabernacle, right? This is just the tabernacle in stone. But when Herod the Great came along and took power in about 37 BC, I believe, he had a lot of building projects going on. And, building projects are a way to stimulate your economy and put people to work and make people think you're a nice guy. And, of course, he had lots of building projects all over Palestine. But one of the major ones that took most of his reign, all of his reign really, was the enlargement of the temple complex. And so He built a large retaining wall around land around the temple, and then he built colonnaded porches and walks, and he turned it into this big campus of beautiful marble buildings. And the only thing that remains of the temple in Solomon's temple is a section of that outside retaining wall, and it is the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem. So if you ever go to Jerusalem and you see those stones in the Wailing Wall, they were there when Jesus was there. And that's all that's left. It's unclear and it's unlikely that people were actually buying and selling things inside the temple proper, which is not that large. It's smaller than the footprint of our auditorium at the Manassas Church of Christ, slightly smaller. So it's not that large a place, and there's a lot of worship going on in there. What is more likely to have happened is that they were buying and selling things in the courtyards and colonnaded porches and things around. Now, people are coming from all over the empire, and they're supposed to bring their offerings, something without spot or blemish. And if you're transporting something from Spain or Italy or Gaul or, the southern part of Egypt or Babylon, it may be without spot or blemish when you leave, but it's likely not going to be without spot or blemish when you're there. And so it was a service provided. People would sell animals that had already been approved by the priests for sacrifice. You could buy them there at the temple. You also had to exchange your money, your foreign money, for the money that was being used there. And of course, everybody's got to make their coin. And so this is capitalism at its finest happening in the temple compound. And remember that Jesus came every year with his parents. We know that from Luke. And I wonder if Jesus saw all those years, saw his dad being cheated, and understanding that the working class folks and the poor folks who came and just wanted to worship, they were at the mercy of these capitalists. And that was not right. It was not right. And so he does something about it. Many of the paintings show Jesus taking a whip to the money changers himself. The Bible never says that. But he did cause a stampede in the narrow streets of Jerusalem, I'm sure. And he did overturn the tables. I mean, this was a physical act, not a physical act of violence against other human bodies, but a physical act of saying, no, this is not going to go on. And what is that replaced by? By his healing ministry. And who are the ones who have gathered around Jesus, calling him the Son of David? The children. The kids. The kids are a theme throughout the Gospels. Jesus is himself a child. Jesus is always blessing children, welcomes children, uses children as the example of what we're supposed to be as a disciple. He's already done all that in Matthew's Gospel. And now the children are around Jesus. They're hanging out with Jesus in the temple and singing that he is the Son of David. And that is in itself a fulfillment of prophecy, Psalm 8. And so that's what Jesus says whenever the high priests are indignant that this guy has come and set up shop right under our nose and there's nothing we can do about it. And he just says that to them and then he leaves. And we're going to read about what happens when he comes back the next day, next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word, nearly 10 today.